All right, I'm recording.
All right, amazing. So we do want to talk about this show. My brother here has recommended a TV show called what?
I guess Yeshua Wisdom TV.
Yeshua Wisdom TV. And the show is The Chosen. So I haven't seen it. I want to do a little slight review on maybe the first, or maybe two episodes, because the thing is that I believe my brother was being very deceptive with me in saying you can watch the first episode. And the problem is that if you watch the first episode, you're gonna have to watch the second one and then the third one. So you end up trying to get out of only watching one episode, and you end up trying to binge watch it. So we can't review the whole thing. I ended up watching 3 episodes just last night, and if it wasn't so late at night, I would have watched the rest of them. But we do want to get this review in, and then a recommendation on a scale of 1 to 10. Let's see how The Chosen stands up. So, brother, what do you rate this show? How are you going to, if you were to speak to anybody, how would you recommend this show? Because I have my own comments, but I want to hear from you first. What did you get?
Honestly, the show The Chosen is probably, in my opinion, the best show depicting the life of Christ as it probably would have been at that time 2,000 years ago. The way that they convey in the series, the way Jesus is portrayed, right, is so, it comes across as very authentic, not just in a sense of cultural sense, but in the way he carries himself, not making himself out as like a wispy kind of character or too mystical. It really, I thought, emphasized much of his humanity, much of his in the interaction of the disciples in a more, I guess, common context, in the sense of that these
Right.
were real people. A lot of times.
Right, and that really got to me as well, because when you say it like that, and we're trying not to give any spoilers for those who want to see it, but when you had described that to me as far as it's more common, I'm looking for Jesus, and in the first episode, you don't really see too much of him, and it seemed difficult to follow because I'm just looking for Jesus the whole time. But what's amazing is that my favorite has always been, and I've been very vocal about that, is the Gospel of John. I think that was 2003, maybe it came out, and I still watch it to this day. I can watch the first half hour over and over of that 3-hour movie, and that follows Scripture to the letter. Like they only say those lines. They don't include anything else. But in this, it's not fiction, but they do take liberties because they go into the lives of the others. And that's what I think makes this so common and so relatable, is that, you've got Nicodemus over here, and they're going into like his life, and you've got, Mary over here, and Mary Magdalene, and they get into the life of Matthew, and at first I'm like, I don't know who any of these people are. But as you start to really understand, oh, this is Matthew, oh, this is Andrew, oh, this is, James and John, or this is Mary Magdalene, or all of the people who Jesus interacted with in the Gospels have a life, and they get into that. And I thought that was the most interesting part to me. Like, wow, like what were these people doing before Jesus got there?
Yeah, you mentioned Matthew. Of everybody in the whole series, like all the characters, my favorite character is Matthew.
Yeah, especially my episode 3.
Yeah. So what's cool is that, okay, you know, we could watch the series and we see that there are people with situations. Like, for example, you could tell that Matthew is a unique character. He has some form of, the way he's portrayed in this passage is that he has like a form of autism that makes him very good with numbers, very detailistic, and he's very honest. He has
Yes.
perception in him, you know. He's just really good with what he does, but it doesn't make him. It doesn't put him in a sense of like, it doesn't diminish at all the idea that Matthew was one of the Bible writers, and the fact by the time you get to the last episode of the first season,
Can't spoil it. Don't spoil
I'm not gonna spoil. I'm not gonna spoil. I promise. But by the time you get to the last episode, you really going to love Matthew, because you're like, wow, I think it really just it made me at least connect with the disciples in a more intimate way watching this series. A lot of movies and series, I think, tend to uh, focus so much on Jesus, and they don't really invest more in the entire background of the apostles. Like, for example, you know, you'll look at the older movies, right? And all you'll focus on is like what the Bible mentions about them. Like, for example, Peter was a fisherman. So all you
Right.
see is Jesus showing up, and he's, you know, he leads them on the thing, and he's fishing. And then, like in the Jesus movie, for example, right? Jesus just walks up to him, and Peter just happens to come in the scene and he's on a boat, and he says, "Can I go on a boat?" And you know, Peter's like, "Okay, yeah, because you said so, I'll let down the nets," you know. But you
Mhm.
don't have any background that leads up to Peter's life. This one, they obviously took liberties. We don't know if Peter, you know, had, you know, problems, but the way they had in the movie. But because of the way the Romans operated in the area, that was a very realistic issue that they had.
Right, with money, and we do know that Peter was very upset when the Romans had asked him to pay taxes. So we do have that piece of information.
Yes.
But that's what's so, I think, wonderful about this rendition is that not that they deviate from Scripture, not necessarily that, but it's letting you know that this is the lifestyle of these kinds of people. Like Matthew, as a tax collector, for those who don't know, you know, Matthew was a tax collector, and the Jews felt very oppressed at that time because of the Romans in their land. So it's like you have this Jew who's also collecting taxes for the Romans.
Yes.
So obviously he wasn't, you know, the best liked person. But then you see Matthew getting into conflicts with people in this show. So it's just like it just goes to show you a lot of the background. You know, why would Nicodemus even want to meet with Jesus? And then the scenes that they show you with Nicodemus, with his wife and his family dealing with demonic possession and all of these types of things. I'm trying not to spoil it, but you know, it shows you Nicodemus's life. He wasn't just a typical Pharisee of, well, let me just get the credit and let me just talk. You know, you have, it's a stark contrast to the way that the Pharisees lived. It shows you how the Pharisees lived. And then when you compare that to now the Bible that you should be reading, you know, now you see Jesus's life and you're like, oh, I could see why a person like Nicodemus would want to talk to Jesus. You know, like
Yeah.
I could see why, you know, people would be a little upset that Jesus chose Matthew as a disciple to become an apostle. You know, and granted, I like how you said Matthew seems a little autistic, because you know it's just like he's counting taxes. He's just like, I can see you were delinquent on, you know, on this date, and he's just remembering all of these things. And what do the Jews see? The Jews just see, man, this guy just wants money. You know, like they're not looking at it as like personality, and it's just like he's good with numbers. You know, so it's just but I'm really trying not to spoil. At the end of the third episode, because coming from my family, we're just trying to look up what Shabbat means, because you're going to have to, they get so far into Jewish culture. We're just like, isn't that like Shabbat Shalom? What is that? So it's just like, but then when you see what it is and to see how all of these different characters react to it, I'm like, oh, wow, they're putting something together, like it's going to be really good the way that all of these characters interact with Jesus because of the way that their culture is. So it's just, I don't know. I recommend it. I just, on a scale of 1 to 10, we're rating this. What do you give this show for somebody who've read the Gospels, they're saved, and they're looking for some quality Christian entertainment? What would you store this, man? What would you give this?
On a scale of 1 to 10, 14.
14.
Yeah, that's how I say that because I got to tell you, it is really the best series I think ever made, because it emphasizes certain aspects of the life and the world of the people then, with real problems and things that we find that, okay, what was it like to be oppressed by Rome?
Right.
You understand? What was their day to day? And what I like also about the film is that not only does it tell you the story of the New Testament people, but it gives you flashbacks in the beginning about in the
Right.
past, or from even in the Old Testament. Like they'll go over moments in the Old Testament, and next thing you know, it switches over, and of course you got the cool theme, the modern theme song, of the show. But it's the thing is that there's this it just, when it comes to the part about Jesus, it makes him less wispy, less mystical, and emphasizes the approachability of Jesus. Like he really, like he likes to interact with people. You can tell that he enjoys this interaction that he does. And I think that a lot of us, especially when it comes to Jesus, when we watch movies, we're expecting this high and lofty persona of the God man, and like he's very spiritual, and he's and we fail to remember that Jesus was very much human also. He wasn't just divine, he was also human. But he interacted in every way that was human. And I think so much so that it actually made the pain of the disciples when Jesus died even that much more acute. Because they had such an interaction with him on a day-to-day that they could connect with him that they couldn't have gotten otherwise. And so this show actually depicts the life of Jesus in a very normal way, like day to day, and I really appreciate that about him.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, my brother is a Jew, so I think that it relates a lot more to him to see his culture really in a way. So not to say that it downs for anyone who's not, because we all have culture. And I am interested in Jewish culture anyway. You should be. Any Christian should be interested in Jewish culture. So from a cultural aspect, I believe that's why you're a little skewed with the 14 out of 10. Now, not to say that that's bad, you guys. I think that that's really an interesting point, because the culture of this show is so much deeper than, I'm not going to say what the scripture allows, but what I believe is that when you read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and any subsequent book of the Bible, these are written by Jewish writers, with the exception of Luke. So aside from Luke and Acts, every book is written by a Jew. So there are certain things that you're just assumed to know. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you're assumed to know what certain things mean. And we have so many different Bible discussions over what this means and what that means. And while it's very interesting, it can get us off from what the Bible means, from what the writers meant. And two, it's something that you would just be assumed that's the norm. Whereas in this show, it shows you their culture. Like when you were talking about with a flashback, it shows you a flashback of hundreds of years ago of them starting a prayer. And then it'll show you not the present day, but present day Jesus's time. And then why that prayer actually means something. They've been doing this for centuries, so it will get into the culture and show you the culture. So it's very rich with that. It's very rich with showing you why certain things even mean certain things. Why, when we look at Jesus talking to the Pharisees, well, why does that even matter? Well, when they show you a bit of the Pharisees' culture and what it looked like, well, now you can understand when Jesus would talk to the culture, talk to the Pharisees, and why people would be upset at the why the Zealots were fighting with the Romans so much. I can spoil one thing here, and I'm not going to spoil a scene, but little subtle things that they put, like where they had Jewish writing on the wall, and it said like the Messiah will destroy the Romans. Like that's what they were looking for, and then you see like a Roman guard scrubbing that off the wall. But I'm like, well, why do you think the Pharisees, not the Pharisees, but even after the resurrection, you see the disciples asking, okay, are you going to, bring Jerusalem back from the Romans now? It's just like all of these things make a lot more sense when you look at the cultural aspects of it. And this show really allows you to really see that, and in a time like now, coming from African-American culture, I deal with it a lot as far as people saying, we're oppressed by the white man. And I'm just like, do you really think that the Bible doesn't understand what you're talking about? I was just like, the Jews had that same concept as far as being oppressed by Romans. Only the difference is that they were a lot more oppressed by Romans. They were being actually, fighting and killing each other on the street. We don't really see that a lot in America, but the Bible is very understanding of oppression. So I think that this show is really relatable in modern day. It's a lot more relatable than just the scripture. And I hate to, I'm not saying this to down scripture, definitely not downing scripture. What I'm saying is, from a cultural aspect, this easily gets, I'm not going to go 14 out of 10, but from a cultural aspect, I'll still give this 10 out of 10. Definitely for a Christian, you definitely want to see this series.
Yeah, I got to tell you, this whole thing with the and in my number 14, I say that because of my preference in comparison to every other show I've ever watched, every other video. This is by far my favorite. So obviously the number 14 should be indicative of my preference, right? More than the actual, but as far as content, I agree, man. Culturally, if I were to stick within the thing, I'd say a 10. Character-wise, and we're still learning the characters. I think it's still early to really kind of accept it, like the focus on Jesus-wise. I think that the depiction of Jesus, spot on. I would give it,
Yeah.
I'd give it a 10, man. So far, and we haven't even seen much of his interaction, like.
Right. There are only 8 episodes so far.
Yeah, they only have 8, and the first season only has 8 episodes. There is something, though, that I don't know if you've noticed yet, but it was a little nuance in the show. And don't worry, I'm not going to give anything away. But if you notice, everyone speaks in a certain way. The Romans all
Right,
talk in regular English,
right.
American
I
English,
noticed that. You
and
have the
everyone
Jews, they
else
have an
talks in
accent.
the right, in like the native language of,
Hmm.
the rather the English with an accent of the Jewish world. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
find that fascinating that they did that in order to create this dichotomy in culture.
This world, yeah,
Yeah.
to make it to where it's more authentic. And that's what I mean as far as the culture. I'd give it a 10 because they pay attention to certain details. Even in the Gospels, the visual Bible, you don't see that because you see Jesus and he's just speaking regular English. Now, granted, you've got things like the Passion where they're speaking, what is it, Aramaic, or
Aramaic.
not
Yeah.
just Hebrew. Yeah, so
Aramaic.
they're speaking Aramaic, which is an element of authenticity. But here it's like we're going to speak English, but we're going to put a distinction between Jews and Gentiles, right? We're going to show like the way that they dress is very different, and you can see the like with Romans, you could see the distaste for Jews. Like, as for instance, here's something I always believe. I'll talk to my wife and my son a lot about making movies and writing, and I'm very into that. So it's just like, I always believe in show, don't tell, because the more talking that you do, the more it diminishes what you are trying to portray. So little things like when the Jews are talking to each other, and you will see Romans walk by and literally like just bump them,
Yeah.
and then they just continue their conversation. Like they look at the Romans and then continue their conversation. I was like, it goes to show you the tension that's there. So it's like they pay attention to those types of things with Jews having an accent and Romans not. It shows that they're here, but they don't want to engage in your culture. Like they just don't want that. So it's it, and I can't really get into it without spoiling certain other scenes. So, but they do that very well. They establish a world culture for you, that this is what's going on, and they don't have to give you a bunch of dialogue. They don't have to give you text. So and not to say that text is bad, but the more you show it, the better. And I think that they do that a lot with by just giving one or two lines, or having to show you the vanity of a person always looking in a mirror. I think you know who I'm talking about. But it's just like they have, it just, they're very good with that. So it's good writing, and you usually get that with Hollywood. And nothing personal, but I don't really like Hollywood because they always have an agenda to push. But here it is, quality Christian entertainment. I'm like, wow, that's really good. We're getting some Christian entertainment that actually lines up with the Bible. Well, what do you mean lines up? They're saying some stories that aren't in there. Yes, those are background stories. And then when you see Jesus come in, the times when Jesus comes in, now you're getting into that story of Jesus, casting out devils, or healing the sick, or raising the dead. So it's pretty interesting. I like how they did that with the
Yeah.
just given the culture. I'm a big culture guy, and I'm a big camera angles guy, and I like to criticize. I like to do that. So the only criticism that I would give is that if you don't know your Bible, this is probably not going to be an easy show for you to follow. You need to have read the Gospels to know what this is talking about. Like if you only heard a preached sermon once or twice, and you got saved that way, and then you went off and did your own thing, this show's probably going to I'm not going to say push your buttons, but it's going to push the envelope. It's going to push you to read. You want to read the Gospels so that you can know what this is talking about. But for those of us who have actually read it before, man, this is like, wow, I'm just gonna end it. I'm not going to say anything else.
Absolutely, man. I gotta tell you, man, this is this. I recommend this show. It has my full support, man. I've they what's interesting is the way they go about funding the show is that
Yeah.
I've watched some of the videos of from the director, and the way they're funding it is by that when you pay to watch, you're actually paying for someone else to watch. The only
Right.
reason you're able to watch the free episode is because somebody paid for it. So that way, anytime you pay for it, other people are going to be able to watch. And I've already paid twice just because that's how much I believe in the series. It's that
Right.
I think of a valuable resource to be able to, even if you wanted to just introduce people to the world of the New Testament and the biblical world in
Right.
general, to help you understand a little bit of the context of why the events of the New Testament happened the way they did. Kind of like a background. Yeah, I think it's great. It really does a
Right.
phenomenal job at laying down some background for the New Testament that you wouldn't really get otherwise.
And let's hone in on that part as far as the way that they're raising money, because I believe that is actually a good Christian characteristic of this show. For the background, for those of you who don't know, as my brother pointed out, what you do is you donate, and then when you donate, he said that other people get to watch it. So I watched 3 episodes, and I was able to watch 3 episodes before I even paid anything. So that means that they received enough money, they received enough donations from people to actually have it to where I could watch some free episodes. Because as you all know, this world, nothing's free. Okay, even your salvation, Jesus had to pay for it. So this stuff costs money, and I'm not going to say it's not low budget, but this is not low budget. From the setting to the costume design and the actors here, this is professional level quality entertainment. So this is going to cost this easily. I could see them costing millions of dollars. This costs millions of dollars. And then to for promotion and streaming, all of this stuff costs money. And what's happening is that from a Christian standpoint, what they're doing is that they're taking donations and they're using it to allow other people to watch for free, as well as pay for, they're doing the 2nd season right now.
Right.
So I saw that if you donate $1,000, they actually allow you to even be in the show, because they appreciate the people that much. We're not paying for nothing. We're not just paying just to watch TV. You're paying so that other people who aren't as fortunate as you can get this. And then if you really desire to pay as much as $1,000, they're gonna allow you to even be in the show. We want you to be one of the people who Jesus feeds.
What's interesting is that before you, like, when you look in the app, the Chosen app, right? Because you press play, and as the video's loading, it'll tell you who funded that episode for you. It tells you the name of the
right,
because you can put that information in there, and it's cool because you're like, oh man, like this person actually paid for me to be able to watch this, and I think it doesn't, if I could say, divorce you from the cost that other people have done. They're like, oh wait, this is a real person who did this for me, and so
right, and it gives you that much more of an inspiration to donate.
Yeah,
like from
I agree.
From my sense, I'm not just paying to watch this. If I'm paying to help somebody, what more of a Christian reason do you have to give to a cause? You're
Right.
not just giving so that people can get rich. You're not giving, and granted, we know that that's not true as far as even with offering. but that is a stigma on Christians these days. They're just doing this so that they could get paid. No, they're literally telling you, we're doing this not just for our sake, but for others as well. And it's a great way to spread the gospel. It's a great way to have Christian entertainment at home. And this is something that you and your family can talk about. There's nothing in this show that a 12-year-old can't watch that an adult can't
Yeah,
watch, and then you
I
can
gotta
have
say,
discussions. Now, granted, I think 8-year-olds might be a little above them. It might
no,
be a little
actually, I'll
above.
tell you right now that they're not. All of my kids, from my 6-year-old all the way to my 14-year-old, they love it. That's their favorite show. We don't, like, for example, we'll be just doing whatever, and then my kids are like, Dad, can we please go watch The Chosen again? Please. That's all they, because they love it that much. Because and there's an episode, I think you may have already touched it, where Jesus is interacting with children. And
Haven't seen it. Don't even.
I won't tell. Okay, there's a moment where you see him interacting with children, and I think it's on episode 4, the one you haven't seen yet. But it's interesting because it made him so relatable to the kids that they just loved the show. It was like, whoa, this is so cool. Granted, my kids are probably a little bit different than most because they just love Bible stuff. But the thing is that my kids love it, man. We're all hooked. When we first started watching the show, we decided, like, let's go ahead and watch it for the first time, right? I never watched it, never seen a video about it. And I went ahead and I put on the first episode, and I was like, and we had already said, you know what, it's only like, I think maybe an hour long. I said, let's put 2 episodes today. When we watched the first episode, we're like, oh man, we want to watch the next one. So when we put on the next one, and we watched the second one, we just wanted so badly to watch the third. Like, all right, guys, let's just wait a while. So we skipped a day, and then we watched another 2, and we're like, oh man, this is so good. We just watched up to 4 episodes, and we're like, man, we got 4 episodes left. What can we do? And then we waited like about 3 days to watch the next one. And my kids said, Daddy, can we watch the Chosen? I was like, and I looked at my wife, she's like, yeah, let's watch The Chosen. So we started watching episode number 5, and we ended up watching straight through to the rest of the season. We just couldn't stop.
Yeah, because the kids got on that
it.
one. They made sure that if you stopped, you wouldn't have been able to watch the rest of them. So your kids got you on that one.
I love this show. My kids love this show. My 6-year-old, she's riveted, man. She's just like, she watches the whole thing. And what I liked about it is that my kids were able to look at Jesus not as the religious leader or they looked at him as the person that they would want to see and hang out with. You understand?
Jesus is so relatable in this show.
Yeah,
I can say that. And I know it just seems like we're just trying to do free advertising, but it is very serious, you guys. Like, I really believe that if you want to see a more relatable series as far as what can really hook your interest, I'll use this as a and I don't want to mention a different show, but I'm going to have to just for an analogy purpose. One of my sons, he's grown, and he had told me that one of his friends had recommended The Mandalorian, a new Star Wars show. Now, I am not into Star Wars like people are. I never got the hype. When I was younger, everybody wanted me to go see Star Wars, and I saw the first episode, and I'm just like, I don't know. And people are like, that one doesn't count. You need to see all these. So I was never into the Star Wars hype. I've never seen the original trilogy. I'm not a big Star Wars guy. But my son showed me this show, and I watched it with him. And it's not. It gives you a more Western feel, but I understand the show don't tell aspect of the show. It makes you want to watch the rest of it. Yeah. So they immerse you in that world. They do a lot of world building and a lot of character building. And I'm like, this show, The Chosen, actually gives you world building and character building on a Bible based theme. And I was just like, so this is not just aliens, and they have to make everything up. They can literally use biblical material. I'm holding my Bible, so they're using biblical material and they're immersing you in that culture. So this is not, I'm not going to say, well, I am going to say based on a true story, because you know how based on a true story doesn't mean that all of it's true. It just means that they take the actual details and then they give background. So that's what they're doing with this show. They're immersing you into the world
Yes.
of these characters. And that's what I really love about this show, is that that's why it's so relatable. So it's not just, I'm jumping on the bandwagon of The Chosen because you challenged me. And I told you that the Gospel of John is my favorite and nothing's ever going to top that. I like the Gospel of John more than the Passion of the Christ. Like, this is really, they go verse by verse, word by word. And I'm like, something that here's my brother telling me that they don't go word by word for the Bible. I was like, I'm not going to like this show, So, but the way that they do it, I was like, wow, this is really relatable. This is going to age very well because it's so professional. And they have a couple of funny lines of dialogue in there. And so it's just good enough to keep your attention by building that world and building that relatability. So I would give this a 10 because of that. I don't usually give things a 10. But being that I used to rate Marvel movies, I don't watch them anymore. And I gave like a movie like a 9 or something. I just have to top out Marvel because this is biblical. So just because of that, you guys are getting my bias. I'm giving it a 10. My brother here is giving it a 14. So I would watch this and I would donate to their cause. If you can, we're putting the link in the description. You can go straight and download that app, and then you could actually donate right to it so that they can film season 2, and your donations go to help other people watch the show. So it helps to get it out there. You are the advertisement for the show.
And
so
I like
that. That's pretty much it. Do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I'll make you all this promise. Watch the show. You will be changed by it. It'll definitely affect you in a very positive way, and it'll move you. It'll inspire you. It's great. That's all I can say. The only way to make it even better for you would be to shine. You know what I mean? That's how much I really appreciate this show. It's really
and if you you download it, you get any experiences, why don't you guys leave comments and we could continue the discussion down there, because if you've already downloaded it, tell us what you think. Put it in the comments, and we can really discuss it there, because it's really something that needs to be spoken about. We really need to talk about this, you guys, because it's a new year, and with the way that this year has started, I think that this is a good thing for families to really connect and bond. So why don't you guys leave your comments in the comment section, and we'll talk there. Anything else for the good before we end this off? What do you think?
Yeah, I would say there have been a lot of videos that have been made, by the director, and interviews with the people and everything.
Bonus content. Yeah, we forgot about that.
I would avoid that until after you at least watch the first season. But even then, I would avoid it. And I'll tell you why. Because there are scenes from the second season that haven't come out yet that they'll do snippets of, and I want to catch it all by surprise when I first see the episodes. So if you haven't seen it, don't watch those other videos. At least watch the first season first.
I was about to say, should we watch the first season first and then see the bonus content, or are you recommending not to watch the bonus content at all?
I am avoiding the bonus content, not because I don't want to watch it, but because I do, and because
I want to watch it. I'm telling you right now, I'm a behind the scenes guy, because I love that stuff. That's what I'm more geared towards. My wife will tell you that we'll watch a film together, and then afterwards, like we watched Courageous, for instance, or that's one of my favorite movies because it's on fatherhood. But then Overcomer, we just saw that one, and she goes in the back. It's time to go to bed. I'm up for another 2 hours because I'm watching the movie again with the commentary, and then I got to
Yeah.
see the behind the scenes, and I've got to see all that. That's just,
Well, I
so
would at
from
least
a
wait.
Yophi perspective, I'm watching it.
Well, I would at least wait until I've watched the first season before I go into the bonus content. I have
Into
watched
the
some of the
bonus.
bonus content. Since watching some of the bonus content and seeing some snippets of the second season, I don't like to be spoiled like that. So I would rather, at the very least, just so you can have a background of how the movie came together and all that, that's great. But watch the first
Right.
season first. And it's only
Watch the first.
eight episodes for the first season. But it's
Right.
so worth it. It is so worth it.
All right. Well, I'm going to get to that bonus content once I'm done watching this because we're only on, as I said, as I'm doing this, I am only on episode 4. We saw the first 3. We were only supposed to watch the one episode, but you really can't once you see the end of episode 1, because I'm like, is this getting off to a slow start? What's going on? And then like at the end of the first episode, it's just like boom, and I'm like, you know what? It's not going to hurt to watch the second episode because I want to see what happens after this. And, so, you watch the second episode and then, we ended up, well, let me just see the third episode because, there's a little cliffhanger right here. And I want to see that closed off.
Yeah.
And then it's like, but then they still do it. Like by the third episode, they leave you with more like, okay, well, they answered this question, but what about that? So now, and we were just like, you know what? It's late. We got to go to bed. It's like, we'll watch the other ones at another time. So we're still on episode 4. You're finished. Guys, watch the first season of The Chosen. Download the app. It's in the description. Donate. Some of you who have more, donate more. If you have less, donate less. But you definitely want to, even if you have a penny, like the woman in the Gospels, if that's what you have, donate to this because this is Christian content. It's good for you and your kids to really get a background of the Gospels, and it's very relatable. So I was just saying, are you the Messiah? I'm not even that's going to mean something to you when you guys watch it. But it's just like, it's that good. And really, that's what we could say about this. So we'll end it here, and you guys just let us know what you think in the comments. But aside from that, this review is done.
All right.
All right, we'll see you guys later.